Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the council meeting. We're just learning about speakers for May 15th. We will call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. I will now ask Councillor Joan John to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is a part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nation of the Grand River, Saugeen, Ojibwe Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The lands that surround us is part of who we are as it reflects our history. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. We now have open forum. Lindsay, do you have the list?
I do, through you, Deputy Mayor. First person signed up is Ann Gillies. And you can come up and go ahead.
And I'll just remind everyone, I don't know how many people are on the list, but we do have a limit on open forum and that no decisions will be made as a result of open forum, but we can take the comments into consideration. So you have 3 minutes.
Good. I'm speaking to the proclamation part. I'm Ann Gillies, Southgate resident and taxpayer. I'm extremely disappointed in some of the policy decisions actually since December. The proclamation policy reads like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It's virtue signaling and a smokescreen, an attempt to conceal the raising of the flag for the Pride season. We are Canadians first and foremost, and Council has no right nor responsibility to promote special interest groups. Council is wasting much time and money dabbling in such issues when it should be doing the business of running a municipality. Council is attempting to hide ideological agendas that promote values not held by the majority of people in Southgate and placate a small minority of the population. The people of Southgate do not promote or endorse the medicalization and mutilation of children in any context, and therefore specifically do not agree to the raising of the Pride flag that celebrates the radical promotion of over 80 so-called genders. Gender affirmation policy for minors has been reversed in the UK, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Australia, and over 20 US states. Even social transitioning is opposed in the UK. Puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are not a solution to a condition of the mind. In fact, these are mentally and medically abusive. Thousands of lawsuits are now being launched against doctors and clinics, yet you wish to celebrate such an atrocity. There's a cost to standing for truth. You're caving to the pressure and fear of a socio-political power force and selling out the people of Southgate. How much money are you getting to do this, and who's funding it? Other municipalities have rejected LGBTQ promotion and flag waving, but then come under extreme pressure of their special interest groups. Do you have the backbone to stand up? And what do you mean that the national and Independence Days are not going to be promoted? Is the Canadian flag not to be respected and Canada Day not to be proclaimed? Are you suggesting we're no longer a nation? That's absolute tyranny and corruption. The citizens of Southgate value people, not political or ideological agendas. We promote unity, not division and segregation, and we endorse equality, not equity. This policy also sets Mayor Milne up as a self-appointed dictator, some kind of ruling oppressor, and the champion of special interest groups. This policy needs to be turned down.
Thank you, Dr. Gillies. Is there anyone else, Lindsay?
Yes, Rima. If I pronounced that incorrectly, I apologize.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to present my case. My name is Reima Kaikkonen, indeed. I moved to Southgate Township 48 years ago. And when you come to the farm from the 23rd floor in the apartment building, there's so many things to fix on the farm. It's unbelievable. And I soon realized whatever doesn't need fixing, don't fix it. And I'm now regarding this new policy change. In a sense, new policy brings in a very wider scope of reasons to fly the flag. And I think this is a dangerous zone to township to get into. So it says here, if I quote from the new proposed thing, it says this, requests to receive by township are processed and issued in recognition of individuals, events, organizations, or community groups of significance. I never heard of a community group that considers itself insignificant. So therefore, potentially all these groups want to fly their flag. So potentially, I believe we are creating a Pandora box, which I actually heard use this expression here. Thank you. For how many individuals, events, organizations, community groups of significance there is that want to advertise themselves. They all want to fly their flags, including myself, actually. Given an opportunity, I would like to fly my Jesus flag. And you know, I'm actually very thankful to live in this township because mostly, I understand, you guys are all Christians. So I don't need to convince you that Jesus is a sufficiently significant individual, worthy of the flag. But your hands will be tied up by this cumbersome policy change. I caution you actually not to do it. So you can imagine time and coffee spent to consider in every request and give them fair chance. How do you decide to the satisfaction of every party that may, and some you may have to actually refuse? And on what basis? Who knows? You may end up being part of the Human Rights Tribunal. Please consider potential legal cost of this change. I pray and hope that this is not our experience here in this township, but it could be. So let's see if there's any upside to this thing. Various organizations want to fly their flag. Upside would be if the township will charge $100 a day for every flag flying. Outside of that benefit, I don't see any material benefit to this township as a whole. And that's the important part. You want to serve a whole township, not just some. So if we can see, let me quote from the old policy, this. This policy is intended to create standard procedure for staff to follow to ensure that all flags are flown, displayed in a consistent manner at Southgate operated facilities. And get this, no flag other than Canadian Province of Ontario Township of Southgate flag will be on display. This is elegantly simple, period.
Mm-hmm.
Less work, less hassle, less taxpayer money spent in any debates. So if I compare these policies on the basis of one of the main criteria that you actually in both policies insist on, is a insistence of consistency and standard. Let's look at the old policy. Consistency and standard. Perfect. 3 predetermined flags, no further discussion, period. The new policy, proposed policy, unlimited number of undetermined flags, individuals, events, organizations, or community groups of significance. Pandora box full of meetings, debates, potential legal cost, even liabilities. To me, it's clear. It is working. Don't fix it. And what I would say in behalf of 48 years, I lived in this township, and in one occasion or the other, I have met probably all the farmers in this township, spoken to them, visited with them. And I can boldly say, by far the majority would join me right now to say this indeed. Don't fix it, reject it, and concentrate doing something that you are really voted for to be here. Thank you. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. I'll just, anyone else signed up for open forum, Lindsay?
No, that was everyone.
Okay, thank you. This is the first step in the consultation process, so thank you all for being here. We will now get a confirmation of the agenda. You need a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as amended. Jim and Joan. Any additions or changes? All in favor? That's carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, I'll remind everyone that they can declare it at any time should something arise throughout the meeting. Delegations and presentations. It doesn't look like we have any today. Adoption of the minutes. Be it resolved that the council approve the minutes from the April 30th, 2024 council and closed session meetings as presented. The mover and seconder, Martin, Jason. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? That is carried. Reports of municipal officers. We have the first up is Treasurer Taylor McMahon. 8.1.1, the FIN 2024-009 asset retirement obligation. I'll get a mover and seconder to put the resolution on the floor. Be it resolved that council receives staff report FIN 2024-09 for information and that council consider approval of bylaw 2024-048 to adopt the asset retirement obligations policy. Could I get a mover and seconder? Joan and Monica. Taylor.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you had time to read the policy and bylaw put forward. As stated, it is a PSAB requirement, so we are legally obligated to maintain this standard as of 2023. And then if anybody has any questions, then I'm open to everything.
All right, open it to council members. Has anyone got any questions for Taylor? Martin?
Taylor,
Yeah.
There we go. The PSAS and the PSAB, it says public sector, are they mandated by province or are they provincial?
Canada.
By Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess the other question is for Jim. Do we have any buildings with asbestos?
So through my work with KPMG and research that they provided me along with my own research, asbestos was used knowingly up until 1990. So any building prior to that, there would be suspected asbestos in the building.
Okay. Can I have one more?
Yes.
So with the PSAs and the PSABs, I really don't like all these acronyms. With them, if we're going to do this and we get the criteria, does it help us get funding?
No, so this is just for financial statement only. So it's not really related to the taxes or anything. It's just for the preparation of our financial statements to be in line with PSAB.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Next one is 8.1.2, the bylaw for the asset retirement policy number 96. Be it resolved that bylaw 2024-048 being a bylaw to adopt the asset retirement obligation policy known as policy number 96 be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation and entered into the bylaw book. Mover and seconder, Jim, Martin. All in favor? That's carried. Clerk Lindsay Green, 8.2.1, Clerk 2024015, Dundalk Agricultural Society Agreement Amendments, Baseball Park Lands and Sports Field Lands. I need a mover and seconder to receive the report for information and consider approval of the bylaw to enter into agreements with the Dundalk Agricultural Society as presented. Jason and Joan. Lindsay.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. These agreements were brought to council last year around this time. The Ag Society just had a few concerns that they just wanted to address and make a few minor amendments. So I provided the track change document in there. So you can see the differences. It was quite minor. There was one section about the grading of the arena parking lot that got clarified with our public works manager. So everyone is good to go with these revised versions. So if there's any questions, I'll take them.
All right, thank you very much. And I do appreciate the track changes. It does make it easy and very transparent to all what we're changing or proposing to change. Any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. We have Martin, did you have a question?
Well, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Do you want to wait till we get the bylaw on the floor then?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Since you already motioned it.
Okay, so we now have the bylaw for the Dundalk Agricultural Society rental agreement, baseball park lands. And Jim will move the resolution. Thanks, Jim. Seconded. Joan will second. Martin, you have a question?
Yeah, item 5 and 6, it has as needed as far as grading of entrance, parking lot as needed, and then it goes into 6. It says, so as needed is taken out, and then in 6, it says on an as needed basis or is requested. So is it as needed or not needed, or, and how
Are
many
you-
times?
Sorry, Martin, are you looking at the track change document?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because the previous version was as needed. So
Okay.
what the final agreement is saying is that the tenant, which is us, agrees to grading the entrance and parking lot areas on an as-needed basis or as requested by the Dundalk Agricultural Society Grounds Committee to be completed within 10 business days of the request being received. And we agree to grading the entrance and parking lot 1 week prior to the fall fair. Their concern was with the fall fair.
Well, mainly?
Yeah, mainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you for the clarification. Any further questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We now have, we did the bylaw, right? Ah, there is too. 8.2.3, bylaw 2024-055 for the sports field, that we approve the bylaw and that it be read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk and entered into the bylaw book. Have a mover and seconder? Martin and Jim. Any questions with regard, Lindsay, did you want to elaborate on this bylaw? No, you were good? Any further questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Clerk, 2024017 Flag Protocol and Proclamation Policy Draft, which is, I think, why we're all here today. Be it resolved that council receives staff report CL 2024-017 for information and that council provide comments on the draft flag protocol and proclamation policy number 51 as provided, and that council consider approval of the policy at the June 5th council meeting. Mover and seconder, please. Joan? I need a seconder. Martin? And I just, I did want to clarify, or perhaps Lindsay wants to clarify that the policy that's being proposed today was as directed by council last fall or last year to bring back something that we would then be able to discuss and bring forward our comments and that with the public consultation. So I appreciate, Lindsay, the effort that you put into this and the research, and that it isn't proposed to pass today. This is an opportunity to get feedback, which we're grateful to be receiving all of the emails and comments. The flag policy, Lindsay, I'd like you to speak to that. That my understanding is that you're not proposing any changes to that.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay to speak further about the policy.
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, yeah, we were directed with, or I was with a notice of motion to bring back a proclamation policy. Through my research, I found that a lot of the policies were together with flag and proclamation. So that's why we opened up looking at our flag policy. Nothing is changing with the flag policy portion of it. We are only still displaying the flag of Canada, the province of Ontario, and the Southgate municipal flag. We're not proposing to fly any other flags. So that's consistent with the current policy that's in place. The only addition here is just making it cleaner so that staff have more clear guidelines to follow with the half-masting. And then we did have the addition of the proclamation. So that is a new process for us. The proclamation policy section was largely based on a few neighboring municipalities, Town of Blue Mountains, County of Grey. And that is, yeah, it is new. So that is what council wanted us to bring back. So this is, as Deputy Mayor pointed out, it's a draft, and happy to take questions, comments, and make amendments as necessary.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so questions from council. Martin.
I have a few on the proclamation, but. Sorry, $5. Flying flags at half-mast. I wondered why the death of a current member of council or a current member of staff. Does that imply just council in the 4-year term, or are we getting rid of everybody that served before? That doesn't mean that?
So if you look to the third definition, prominent public figure and other individual, that includes the current or past warden of Grey County and past members of the councils of Southgate, and then also former Egremont, Proton, and Village of Dundalk. So that is covered in there. Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Oh, sorry. Well, it's all one policy, Martin.
No, but I just
ahead.
wondered if anybody else had
Nope.
questions about the flag.
Carry on. You can, another one.
Yeah, maybe just comments, and they'll be looked at for the June 5th meeting, and it'll come in here. Quite frankly, for me, I do, I like number 2, the proclamations. I have no problem with that. Political parties, political organizations, religious, individual, all that kind of stuff. Usually, especially with A, they're usually have a constitution, usually have directors or trustees, treasurers, there's money involved. And so they have their own agendas. So I totally agree with that whole list from A to I. Leave them out of it. But again, I like that word, Pandora's box. That is such a good way to explain this. Do I have to do an amendment, or is anything, or just say maybe get rid of A, B, A to E as well, and have no flag policy, make it even simple. Just keep it Canadian, Ontario, and township, because all the.
I'm going to interrupt for a second. I think we're getting
We're confused.
confusing the flag with the proclamations. The section that you're referring to under 2A through I is proclamations.
Yeah, that's what. I'm
Those
talking
are
about now.
certificates, not flags.
Okay,
and-
that going back to my other point then,
Okay,
but usually you went and did the research, proclamations and flags go hand in hand.
They're just covered under the same policy is what I meant. So that's why when we were directed to bring back a proclamation policy, instead of just creating a second proclamation policy, we thought we would combine it into one,
Okay.
just to be in line with what many other municipalities do, but they are separate. Like if we want to maybe, like you suggested, maybe no proclamations, then that's fine. And that's what the policy will say, but that doesn't affect the flags.
No, but that's why I said, if there's any questions about the
Yeah.
flag part of the,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna keep those A to I away in the proclamations, and then the A to E, civic promotions, and I can see where they're getting from with that. Why not just forget about it all? And you're not
And that-
breaking any human rights because everybody's still allowed to raise a flag, you know? Somebody mentioned to me with all the expletive Trudeau flags going around. We have no idea. We can't stop them from doing that. It's the same thing. So let's just keep it simple.
So, and that's an
If you
option.
can-
I would.
If you can option that.
Well, I would like a formal amendment from council if
Oh,
that's what
is
if
that
that's
what
what
I-
council wants me to do with the policy, and
Well, at least look into it.
So why don't we, there's a few people, Monica had her hand up, Jim has her hand up, Jason has his hand up. So I think what we'll do is we'll allow people to speak and we'll see where that goes. And then if direction needs to be made to the clerk as to what the policy will look like coming back, that this is where we are at. This is why we are here. So Monica, you're next.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I wanted to thank everyone who is here today in our gallery. It's very good to hear the voice of the people, and it's a reminder that that's why each one of us are here on this side of the table. One of the things I wanted to just mention was that during our review of our CIP, our Community Improvement Plan for 2023 to 2027, this document was fairly important. A lot of money, time, resources was allocated to developing that plan. Consultations, close to 30,000, if I remember, was paid for that report to be done. There was a lot of staff resources, time, and also billable hours for council to deliberate over that, and a special meeting for that. So that community improvement plan, from my understanding, was a strategic direction that was voted on and implemented. One of those important themes that had emerged from that CIP was opportunities to exist to forge strong relationships between new and existing community members. The other one that trend that emerged was the need to build complete and connected communities in Southgate. When we take a look at proclamations, I find that word to be a little bit bigger and scarier than it needs to be. It's really just a collaborative tool that would be implemented to connect the community to the government. And I find that's needed a lot more these days. I'm a strong proponent of less government and more power to people. We are not to be so involved, I believe, in every layer of policy and bureaucracy, red tape, gatekeeping, and lack of trust. Our community improvement plan was very focused and is still focused, I hope, on connecting the community. When we take a look at the core values that were involved in that community improvement plan, it was to ensure that the quality of life in Southgate and the little paradise that I remember, I can't remember who exactly, but even on council talks about Southgate being a little paradise in Grey County. I love that. And because it is a little paradise in Grey County, one of the reasons it's been blessed that way, and one of the reasons that place exists, this place exists that way, is there's something that's welcoming here. We're talking about past, present, and future. When my family moved up here, and representing a lot of people who moved up here, there was that welcoming feeling of a small town, rural charm, and something that really helped people to come in. When this policy that I now understand is a draft, I like that idea that it's a draft because there should be public consultation with something that's a heart of the matter of a community. And that's exactly what this proclamation and this policy is all about. So when we take a look at this being a draft, on Thursday afternoon, this agenda, comes out, and then people are busy, they're working. We have a bedroom community for the most part in the new area. So people are getting up, going to work, coming back late. Then I don't have to tell people here, I come from a line of farmers, and so do people here, and we have farmers here right now. This is planting season. They're getting seed in the ground so we can get food on our table. They're very focused on their work right now. They don't even have time to even look at a policy like this. So I feel like we need to get back to municipal business and focus on our community improvement plan that would support connecting the community to its government. Another thing when we had here was happy and healthy communities. The emails that I've been receiving the conversations that I've been having and the calls that have been coming in all the way up until now, I am very saddened because the calls that have been coming in, the clarity that is needed in understanding what this policy is actually saying, there is great need for that. There is confusion. This has created confusion in our community, I believe, with the people that I have spoken to. I have people who are Sikhs, Hindus, Christian, Catholic, Buddhist, agnostics, which is its own religion in its own right. We cannot separate the set of beliefs that people carry intrinsically and check our hats at the door and come in here. What is our moral compass? What are we actually guiding our principle on? What are we actually doing? So with that being said, and I do have more to say, but I will just want to give opportunity for others to share. We are a growing community. I'm very thankful to our clerk. The delegation process has been superb. I really I think it's Rima, the individual who spoke earlier, the resident, he says, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The only response I've received about the delegation process has been nothing but good. It's good. It's rigorous in its own right. You need to submit documents. You need to sign documents. You need to put your supporting documentation in. There's a level of channels that go through that people are kind of not understanding how to do it. But our clerk and staff have provided that clarity every step of the way for residents to be able to come forward and make sense about how to have their voice heard. My concern is that shutting down a voice like this will open up a door. Do we have a budget for litigation that's about to come through as a result of picking and choosing who gets through and who doesn't? If you ask a Jew, a Hindu, a Sikh, a Catholic, they will say that this is not my religion, this is my culture. So in section 1 of proclamation process, who is going to tell the person that they believe is a religion or what they believe is a culture? So this is the concern that are arising right now. These are the things that we need to take care of. And I think as good intentioned as this policy is, and the amount of work that has gone into this policy, December 20th, a faith-based group came here to present. And even though they didn't receive the answer they wished, they respected the process of the delegation, that the clerk and staff helped them to walk them through that. That is the feedback I received. It is a good process. And now on January 17th, Councillor Shipston, moved by Councillor John, have request staff report for this to come back. And now it's come back on Thursday. It's not enough, there's not enough transparency and fairness at the first look of it. And also there's too many questions that have arisen. And I've received way too many saddened people. The first comment I got from a resident was, why don't they want us here? So we have to take pause. Let's take a look at, we have the flag protocol. I agree with it. The municipal, Canadian, and Ontario provincial flag, perfect. Proclamation, I would think that no proclamation, I understand that, but that again is going to raise another set of questions. People have been asking for it. Our gallery was filled in December, standing room, almost 50 plus people were here of supporters, ministry leaders, different leaders, people were watching. We want to calm it down, diffuse it a little bit, please, and just have a good look at it. And I just wanted to add one more thing. The mayor said in December, which was a very good thing, the mayor had said that we look at delegations case by case, and if you would like to come back, that will be an opportunity. And even though the group did not get what they were looking for in terms of a proclamation, which is just a public announcement of support, they were happy with that. Where has that changed along the way? That's what this will do. And then Grey County in 1995, a proclamation process was introduced. It's a 30-year policy. The current sitting council there, they had decided to keep whatever they have the way it is. And I believe the deputy mayor had said that, you know, we need to not put that kind of pressure on a sole warden, on a sole person to make that final decision, which is the same warden as our mayor. So I really appreciate you, Deputy Mayor, for identifying that. That's a very good point that you made. We shouldn't have that sole discretion and all that pressure on one person to make these kind of decisions. So I thank you for that. And I just wanted to stop that for now, but this is essentially my view on this at this time, and I will not be supporting this at all.
Thank you, Monica. I'll now go to Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Barb. I identify as he.
Thank you, Jim Ferguson.
There we go. I don't think we are in the business of this proclamation and all that. We're here, roads, water, sewage, building permits, this. So I'd like to make an amendment to get rid of any proclamations.
All right, well, somebody's called for an amendment. I know that Jason had his hand up and Joan had her hand up, but we can continue the debate. We'll see if the amendment gets on the floor. Lindsay, do you have a wording that that would be suitable?
It can just amend the third clause and direct staff to amend the draft flag policy and flag protocol and proclamation policy to remove the approval of any proclamation requests and bring back the policy for consideration at a future meeting.
Is that what your intent is, Jim? Sounds good? Yep. Do I have a seconder?
Could that be kindly repeated? Sorry. Sorry,
Is
thank you.
there any way we could put it up on the screen? Sorry,
I
Holly,
can.
or
So just to repeat it,
we
so it
wanna
would be
see
to
it.
amend the third clause of the motion to state that council directs staff to amend the draft flag protocol and proclamation policy to remove the approval of any proclamation requests and bring back the policy for consideration at a future meeting.
So it's almost adding a third clause and then
Just amending the third.
okay.
clause.
We just do it where we just don't bother with proclamation.
You need to put your microphone. I think that's what she's saying.
Okay,
That's what
yeah,
it's doing, yeah.
okay, yeah,
It's saying that instead of this policy,
just bring back one that says.
that we would it would come back to the June meeting as a policy that would not provide proclamations under any condition.
Correct.
Works for
Is
me.
that okay? Do I have a seconder? Martin? All right, and so I'm gonna, now that we have an amendment on the floor, I'll continue with the conversation. Jason, you're next, and I believe Joan, you also had your hand up?
So I guess I'm not 100%. So we're saying no proclamations. Nobody can come here and ask us to proclaim nothing.
That would be the amendment.
That's the amendment. Okay, yeah, I guess I don't agree with that. I get what Jim's saying. We're in charge of roads and everything, but we're elected by the people. The length of time I've been on council, there hasn't been that many proclamations come. The flag policy, that's perfect. We don't need any other flags hanging up anywhere other than that. But I still feel that the people should be able to come and talk to us and ask for it. We've only had what, one or two in the few years, and decide on the basis of it. Like you said, we had one in December. It didn't go the way that the crowd wanted, but I don't know. I feel it should be. People should have their say still, and their ask, I should say, be able to ask, and we can decide whether to do yes or no. Same thing, leaving it up to the mayor. Yeah, I don't know. It's anyway, we can talk about it. That's my feeling on it.
Okay, Joan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nowhere in the policy does it preclude anyone from celebrating what they believe in, nor does it say we cannot celebrate Christian Heritage Month or that Christian can't hold an event monthly. I am thinking if we don't need a proclamation to celebrate our history, therefore, in order to avoid any accusation, discrimination, or biases, we probably should have no proclamation. But if you need a proclamation, that paper, because I seconded the motion for this to come back to staff. Let us carry on and celebrate. I don't think we need council proclamation to build awareness, to celebrate and educate about what we believe in. Christianity has been around since the 1st century after the birth of Jesus. Given the controversy raised by the Christian faith, Jim has already amended the policy, And I listened to county, and I think we should mirror the county resolution. But what I'm saying is that Christianity is something that we all choose to. I remember when I was younger, I had to go to church every Sunday. I came home and told my mom I needed to baptize, and she said no. And now my sister will laugh at me to say, oh, we can't even get her in church every Sunday, but she wanted to be baptized. So this is something we all choose to do. Following God and being a Christian is a personal preferences. Being Black or BIPOC is how we were born. That's how I was born, and I cannot change that. And I don't want us to confuse being Black to being Christian and Christian Heritage Month. Don't get it twisted at all. But we can always celebrate. My faith in God is always celebrated through prior reflection and walk in the gospel. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay. And so just to be clear, you're referring to many of the form emails that we've been receiving? Okay. All right. Monica, and I'm going to ask you to keep it brief so that other people have another round. There is the procedural bylaw, so I'm just going to ask that you.
Yes, and I appreciate that, and I hope it's a practice by all in the future meetings as well. So with that being said, thank you so much for that. And thank you, Councillor John. I think that there's an intersectionality, which you're referring to in terms of different groups. So if there is a Sikh person who is also brown, like me, Indian, there's a religion, Sikhism, and then there's a brown person. I respect what you're saying, but not all things can be separated that easily that way. Again, just bringing it back down to what was just recently said, that when we take a look at proclamations, really is just a formal public statement where, for example, honoring a state champion field hockey team. It's just an official statement of praise and celebration. It's just a way for the government to connect to the public and let them know that we see you, we hear you. And yes, it would be simpler to cancel out it altogether. I do have a little bit of a concern with the neighboring municipalities that may have been used solely. I think there would be room to expand that. Township of Orangeville has done a phenomenal job of doing proclamations. And speaking of it, when we do look at the flag protocol and the proclamation process, they are cousins, but they're not from the same family. So I do think that they should be separate completely, the policies on those two ends. But when we look at different municipalities, I have questions of what is the demographics of Grey Highlands and the demographics of the rest of the parts of Grey County. Southgate is a very different municipality comparatively. The people who have moved here and the people that are coming in the 1,000 homes that we were talking about a few weeks ago, who is moving there? What are we telling them? So my main concern is that we don't look at this very personally and subjectively to the extent that we bypass what we are here to do in terms of being elected officials and hearing what the people are asking for. So if we say no proclamations, that means no public announcements, no praise, no celebration in a rural town where our community improvement plan has focused on healthy and happier communities. So when we're looking at a policy, is this fair and transparent? Is this premature or preemptive? Is this helpful or hurting? My first glance at this and the commentary I've received, which is not just from Christians, one of the constituent is a Sikh person. And there are different experiences that everyone has as a woman, as a man, as Black, brown, yellow, red. So if there's concerns with our taxpayers, who are the ones who are funding our pay that we get every month, and they're saying, hey guys, like, you know, we want to be able to have the government proclaim Sikh Heritage Month or Jewish Heritage Month or Muslims or whatever it is, we're going to say, nope, sorry. But why don't we look at it with a different lens, that this is an opportunity to fulfill our community improvement plan, connect the government with its people. And again, if we were to double in our proclamation request, we're really going to what, 2? So I think we just need to also remember that Canada it is a secular state without a state, church, or religion. However, having said that, we must be reminded that our laws and institutions have been deeply influenced by Christian teachings and traditions. And so, whereas this is what is said in the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it says right there, the Constitution of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms from 1982, whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. So we can keep trying to cover our eyes about it, but it's right there. So it's not about Christian, Hindu, Jew. It's not about that. It's the voice of the people who are looking to connect with their government, that their government sees them. And that is the heart of the issue. And I don't think there's anyone on this council that doesn't feel that way. I think that everyone hopefully is good intentioned about it and is really trying to find a way to reduce any concerns and things of that nature. So I know it's like sometimes an uncomfortable position, but that's why we're here. So I just wanted to add that comment for now.
Are there any other questions or comments from members of council? Jason?
Yeah, I'll go back to that again. Like, I agree with Monica. We have to be able to listen to the people. On the other hand, on Jim's point, if we wanna no proclamations at all, then I think we have to really take a look, us as counselors, what we talk about up here, our own interests, because there's a bunch of that going on as far as I can see. So we better not be saying to the public, you can't come and make a proclamation. When you voted for us, you pay our salary. But yet we are pushing, I would say, an agenda almost. I'll put it out there. So it's just, if nothing at all is gonna get brought up, that's fine. Let's vote for it. But other than that, people should have a voice to come and ask us. As like Monica said, 2 a year. I don't think that's gonna tie up too much staff time. But if you want to do that, nothing should be mentioned at this table to better, I don't know how I word, you know what I'm trying to say? Push an agenda, I guess I would say.
I understand. I think okay, I've got Joan, okay, and Jim, and Monica's got her hand up again, and I will have something to say as well. So thank you, Jason. I think before I go to Joan, not having a proclamation has nothing to do with the ability of people to come and have their voice heard. There is absolutely nothing in a proclamation that states that you can't celebrate, that you can't come and have your voice heard, that you can't send us an email to advise us on a particular policy or direction. And I appreciate that people have been able to reach out even in this early draft stage. So I will go to Joan. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Joan is next.
Madam Chair. Well, you just said a part of what I was going to say, but it's hard to remember what month represent what. Like every time you look up their recognition, June, Pride Month, Italian Month, PTSD Awareness Month, Gun Violence Awareness Month, Alzheimer, Brain Awareness, Immigrant Heritage Month. But we're not saying that they can come to the municipality and ask us to be a part of it. In fact, there is a lot of other recognition that have been declared by entity and organization other than federal government. So, and it's not saying that you can't celebrate it. As to what Councillor Rice, we're not saying that they can't come in and talk to us. They can come in and talk to us and we can listen. They can delegate, they can do the open forum. So it's not to say that we're shutting out people. We can't do that. We're not going to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Jim.
It's pretty much the same as what you had said. We're not listening to people. It's just we're not handing out a proclamation piece of paper. Here you go. Let's get down, let's get our business that we need to do in the township and not waste time on this nonsense, is my opinion.
Okay. And again, there's opportunity for residents to let us know about their events, to share it away on Facebook, and we can personally support those celebrations. And again, as you said, Joan, they can come to open forum and tell us all and it's recorded, that about an upcoming celebration. So Monica, you have another comment?
Yes, just to that point, the idea that people can come and ask, and then we get our photos taken with them at their events and different groups, and they get support for when we want to get voted back in or be seen as being a certain way. But then when they come to request to have the government, recognize and proclaim whatever it is that they're looking to be recognized for, that for me is contradiction. The truth of the matter is there are going to be people who are going to ask for it, whatever it is, diabetes, whatever awareness for different things. And yes, that's fine that there are so many different proclamations and months, because there's so many people and it's diverse and people is inclusive, and that's answering, and it's a good thing. They're looking to see what that demographic of is being made up of. So as much as we will be like, okay, no proclamation, but they can come and talk, you're essentially saying they can come, ask, but they're going to get a no. But we're going to be seen as being transparent that way, but we're going to be implementing a policy that's going to be saying you're not going to get it anyway. So I'm just trying to be realistic about the matter. Personally, I have a different, maybe a little bit more different view, that we just, keep it. For me, I would just move that we keep everything the way it is. It's worked, it's not broken, and that people can come and ask, and that's what we're here to do, what we're doing right now. I think the delegation process works well, and we have to be careful with optics. So just being on the council and by some of the, I guess you could say, guidance or things I've heard in passing, the timing of this, it doesn't necessarily mean that, as good intentioned as this, let's say this, let me restart that. As good intention as this request for staff report on January 17th would have been, possibly, that came after a faith-based group, whether they were Sikh, Hindu, Jew, Muslim, doesn't matter. They came, filled this gallery. People in the middle of a week before Christmas in Holstein drove far, took time off work to be there because it was that important. And they were voted down. And that was on the 20th of December. And then January 17th, this request is made. And then now this is Thursday, this has come on the agenda. The way it looks, it almost could be looked at and perceived as, and it has been suggested that it is retaliatory. And that is not what I believe is happening, but it can be looked at as that. I would propose to just keep it as it is. There's delegation requests. It allows people to put their requests in, and we hear it out, and the decisions are made. The flag protocol, keep it as it is. And I don't, and with all respect, Councillor Ferguson, I don't see it as nonsense. I feel that when you're spit on growing up because of your color, when you're looked over because you're a woman, these are uncomfortable things to say, but that's what I went through growing up. And your father getting beat up by people because he's brown, and words being thrown all over the place. I understand that we all have different backgrounds and understanding, but that's where the inclusivity piece comes in. That's where the awareness comes in. That's where the understanding, the education, and all of that piece comes into it. And I do understand about having no proclamation, but is that realistic? Because the demographics of our population in Southgate is such that it is growing, and these requests will come forward. And there's something that people feel when they see their mayor walk in, they see their councilors walk in, they see their deputy mayor walks in, and they say, we would like to proclaim this as Black History Month. It does something to the people, right? If you do for Sikh Heritage Month or whatnot. So that's how I feel about it. I think we should keep things the way it is. It's not broken. Why fix it?
Just a moment, Joan, please. Thank you. Thank you. We have an amendment on the floor. Last word,
One
Joan.
second. Black History Month is royally assented. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so again, Councillor Singh Soares, Monica, you mentioned that we should be less government involved in the social fabric of as creating policy that creates a requirement that somebody come and help and have a formal proclamation. I don't want to confuse, I don't want it to be confused that someone coming to delegate to tell us about an event is a requirement to have a proclamation. And having a policy that helps guide, that's our job, is to set policy to help guide staff in their day-to-day operations so that they don't have to choose or decide. They have to create a staff report. They have to bring it to council. There's time involved. I'm not saying one way or the other. I'm saying let's not confuse the ability to celebrate with our community with a need for a formal government proclamation. That is, having said that, this is the consultation period, and it's still going to come back in June. So I have an amendment on the floor. I'm going to call the question on the amendment, which is to, Lindsay, would you please read it again?
So the amendment is that council directs staff to amend the draft flag protocol and proclamation policy to remove the approval of any proclamation requests and bring back the policy for consideration at a future meeting.
Jason, is it to do with clarity of the amendment? I've called the question, but so I think we should have a recorded vote.
I just have a point of clarity.
Go ahead.
If we wanted to, so if there's another like amendment to keep everything as it is, how would that work?
I've called the question. There's an amendment on the floor. I believe I'll go to the clerk for clarity. We vote
Yes.
on this amendment. If it fails, you can bring forward another amendment.
Yep. Correct.
Yes.
So a recorded vote has been called for the amendment to the main motion, which is to remove the approval of any proclamation requests. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Councillor Ferguson,
Yes.
Mayor Milne is absent. Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
No.
Councillor John,
Yes.
Councillor Singh Soars.
No.
By a vote of 4-2, that's carried.
So now we go to the main motion as amended. Is there one last call for comments or questions? You have your microphone on, Monica. Did you have a
So-
question?
Is this like an amendment to the amendment or?
No, this is
That's
the
it?
motion as amended.
Okay, so I can't make any further amendments? Like what I said earlier?
The amendment passed.
She can make a further amendment. She'd have to.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
If it was put on the floor.
So if I wanted to make an amendment to keep it as it is that something I could put forward?
We've already passed a motion to
Yeah, it has, yeah.
to not include proclamations. So that would be contrary to the amendment
Yeah.
that we've already
Correct,
passed.
yes,
Okay, so no. Yeah.
correct. Depends how you can bring an amendment, but it can't be contrary, so.
I'm guessing it would be a notice of reconsideration within the meeting before we,
Correct.
is that the process?
That would be the process, yeah.
So we have to go through this.
I would like to do that. Notice of reconsideration.
We haven't finished the
Okay.
motion
Yeah,
yet.
you have to
All right.
finish it first.
Thank you. All right. So we have a motion as amended. I'll ask the clerk to read the full motion, please.
So the full motion is be it resolved that council receives staff report CL 2024-017 for information and that council provide comments on the draft flag protocol and proclamation policy number 51 as provided, and that council directs staff to amend the draft flag protocol and proclamation policy to remove the approval of any proclamation requests and bring back the policy for consideration at a future council meeting.
I think at the June 5th council meeting, or are we changing that to a future?
I left it at future just so I can have some time.
little
to
extra
research
time?
if I need, yeah.
That's fine. Then I will call the question. All in favor?
Should we get a recorded vote?
Recorded vote has been called by Councillor Singh Soars. Lindsay?
Yep, so we have a recorded vote on the main motion as amended. Councillor Rice,
No.
Councillor John.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Delbreen,
Yes.
Councillor Singh Soars,
No.
Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Milne is absent, Councillor Ferguson.
Yes.
By a vote of 4-2, that's carried.
Okay. Moving on. Thank you very much. The 8.2.5 CL 2024-018 Purchase and Sale Agreement Approval, Block 58 and 59, Plan 852, Dundalk. Be it resolved that council receives staff report CL 2024-018 for information, and the council consider approval of bylaw 2024-057 to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with 2821921. Thank you all. Ontario Inc. for the lands described as Block 58 to 59, PL 852 Dundalk Southgate, PIN being part of 372670216 LT. Could I get a mover and seconder for that? Joan and Jim. Lindsay.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Council has seen this one before. This has come to the table a couple times. So this is a purchase and sale agreement. We've worked with purchasers and developed the agreement. So I guess I'll just take questions if there are any.
Okay. Could you elaborate as to which property this is for
Sure.
those who may be tuning in later?
Yep, I can. I'm wondering if there's a quick way for Holly to pull it up, but these are to the northwest, I'd say slightly above Memorial Park in Dundalk.
Thank you. Are there, oh, yeah, I have a mover and a seconder. Gee, I'm doing okay. Are there any questions from council? Martin? No? Dina, would you like to elaborate? Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair DeBreen. And this is, and just to let the public and council know, that staff have worked really hard with this developer to bring forward. And we had a willing, I think it's important to say we had a willing developer that was willing to look at affordable housing solutions. And so this this developer was very keen on helping the township with that goal, and as a result in the purchase and sale agreement, you'll see that there is a minimum of 6 units, 10 years that will be kept at CMHC rates, affordable rental units. So I think it's a really big win for the township. It might take some time to get them actually built in and occupied, but it is something that the staff have been working really hard on. So that's the comment I had.
And actually, I was going to get there. Actually, I did want to comment on how long this process takes in, whether it's someone approaches the township or there's an opportunity to have a willing partner that wants to build more affordable units, make good use of land that was landlocked. So I want to thank staff for all the work that has gone on behind the scenes and to bring it to this public meeting. So thank you very much. Martin.
Yeah, and to that point, all the discussions, the original was just 5 years, I believe. And so to make it 10, that is a plus for certain people in the community. So, yeah, thank you.
Any other questions from council? All right, and I did want to actually elaborate on that. The wording in it was 10 years from occupancy. So if it takes 3 to 5 years to actually get them built, hopefully we'll be in a better place as far as our inflationary and cost of housing times. So thank you again, staff. I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Abstain? Like a recorded vote? Oh, I couldn't see hands. Sorry. Okay, so we're all in favor? Honest, that's great. That is carried. Purchase and sale agreement, the bylaw for the same block. I'm not going to read it out loud. I can now appreciate why the mayor doesn't read them all. And it's for the bylaw 2024-057 purchase and sale agreement of 2821921 Ontario Inc. Jason, are you going to move that?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do I have a seconder? Jim? Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor? That is carried. Public Works Manager.
Do we have a bio break for 5 minutes?
Absolutely. We're in recess. 1 minute warning. To those joining us online, welcome and thank you for your patience while we had a bit of a stretch break. I'll now move on to Public Works Manager, PW 2024-021 Hopeful Depot Cold Shed Upgrades Tender Award Recommendation. Could I get a mover and seconder to receive it for information and approve the recommendation to award Hopeville Depot Cold Shed Upgrades Tender to Dom Construction in the amount of $114,480 plus HST? Martin and Joan? Jim?
Good
Hello.
afternoon, good people. Excuse me. So have to apologize. The wrong attachment got attached to this report and we just got notice now. So actually what was attached was the tender, but what should have been attached was the criteria evaluation scoring. So I think Holly may have that we can pull up and we'll add it to the agenda.
Okay, We'll
But
get
this
that up
should
on
have
the
been,
screen.
the attachment with it. So with the evaluation, I will wait till she. It's up here. So we had two submissions for the work to be done. And
this is where we need that music. Do, 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 do.
so the two submissions, the low bid gets the points for the low bid. And here it is. Here, this should have been the attachment and it will be uploaded. So Rice Contracting, it had the low bid at 97,000. But there was not a complete submission with the tender.
Sorry.
There was,
Not-
I guess I'll be
Just one moment.
clear up pecuniary interest.
Yeah,
I didn't
sorry,
know. Yeah.
Jason wasn't aware because it wasn't on the agenda, but he'd like to declare an interest.
Thank you. So we'll note that Councillor Rice has declared a conflict of interest and we'll refrain from the debate.
Actually, one of my questions, who the other person was.
and
Go-
that's, yeah, Martin had asked that too, and that's why this supported it, but that's why we need it. But anyhow, that submission was not complete. It didn't give any references, which was required. So that was the deduction in scoring, as well as experience with a similar type project. There was no actual project submitted. There was some good detail. It did have a good submission in all the other categories, but failed to meet those two categories. So that's reducing the scope of what they would be allotted for the score. As well, it's noted in the report that with the Dom submission, he had a $20,000 for the concrete flooring to be basically almost totally removed to get a drainage system in. But there were other couple of options that were supplied as well, just to put trenches in front of the doorway that could get squeegee to get water out that would maybe pool from vehicles melting off and other floor that doesn't dry into the floor necessarily. And so when we wrote the report, I didn't have, even though there was an option, there wasn't the pricing for it. I actually just got the pricing this morning, which will be $4,200. So the actual amount of this project from Dom is estimated at $98,680.
So
So,
So less
and
than-
my
less
apologies
than the
with
bid?
the mix up with the criteria evaluation, but
so less than what is showing on the screen
Yeah,
there.
and because that was the submitted total, that's the total I had to go with at the time. And when the agenda went out, so just receiving that this morning, that is the reduction in the scope of work, so. So a lot more closer aligned to our budget and that's our recommendation.
Thank you, Jim. Are there any questions from council? Martin?
Thanks for doing that, Jim. With the ceiling finish, it says steel. I guess that's for if you ever cleaned it and get rid of all the diesel from the trucks and stuff. And the other question, the drains, they're out in the doorway. Would there be any, like if there's a bit of salt? I know you don't use a lot of salt, but would that be classed hazardous material when you clean out those drains?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, definitely would be sodium impacted for sure, those, and we would take those cleanings to the landfill like we would other materials of that sort. We're allowed to take that to the landfill for those reasons. Sorry, what was the first?
The ceiling finish.
Oh, the ceiling, that is part of to do with fire separation and maybe Bev can be a little bit more help on that one.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Bev.
Through the deputy mayor there. Yes, the steel is it's not a requirement for fire separation. It is not a fire separation, but it is a requirement for CO2 to separate. Plus the fact that you could use drywall or aspenite or plywood, but moisture is a large concern in these buildings. Vehicles running and drywall, of course, and any material that soaks up moisture has a potential to mold and become a.
Does that satisfy your questions? Okay. Any other questions? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Jim. We'll move on to 8.4.1, the CAO 2024-08 firework exemption request, Full Throttle Motor Speedway. Be it resolved that council approve the fireworks exemption request from Full Throttle Motor Speedway for May 18 and June 29, subject to the following conditions: that no use of fireworks be permitted on the property on May 19, 2021, or June 30, July 1st, and July 2nd. And that the use of fireworks on May 18th and June 29th remain in compliance with the township noise bylaw and conclude preferably by 10 p.m., but no later than 11 p.m. And that the owner of Full Throttle Motor Speedway notify neighboring property owners of the approved exemptions. Have a mover and seconder, please. Jim? Jason? Lindsay? And I see that our fire chief is on the screen as well.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I go by Dina, though, not Lisa.
Oh, okay. Now I'm really feeling like Brian.
It's all right. It's all right. So
Thank you, Dina.
So at the last meeting, I believe it was that we brought forward this new fireworks bylaw. And this is the first exemption request that the township has received. And working through the process very quickly, unfortunately, we had to work through it very quickly. So timeframes were kind of adjusted so that we could work through this application. The idea is for the Speedway, I'm just going to call it the Speedway because that's too many jumbled words for me, but we'll call it the Speedway. The idea is that these two fireworks events would happen on Saturday nights to minimize noise to the neighbors. The application stated that the owner did not consult the neighbors, but they're in frequent contact. And my understanding is that the neighbors are more supportive of one event on Saturday than having these 6 events. Because the bylaw, the staff will take back some learning through this and perhaps bring forward some amendments to the bylaw, because it doesn't preclude, if you have an exemption, it doesn't preclude you from using fireworks on those other dates. So specifically. So in this case, we had to kind of state it in the resolution that they're getting these exemptions for the Saturday nights, but we don't want them having fireworks for 4 nights in a row. So that way, it is actually better for the neighbors around them. Staff are working very closely with the neighborhood group and the Speedway to make sure that the relationship is kept really amicable between the two parties, because it's important that, you know, the neighbors are able to enjoy their property and that the Speedway is able to carry on their business at the same time. So the request is to just exempt those 2 dates for now. We understand that there's further dates that the Speedway may wish to bring forward. But my understanding is also that they're not too concerned about those other dates, that these 2 were the most important to them. But the staff will take kind of the feedback through the process of this and look to maybe review our internal review process as well as any potential changes to the bylaw. But staff are recommending that we approve this so that it is only consumer fireworks, not display fireworks, and it minimizes the impact to the neighbors.
Thank you. And it certainly lends itself better to their crowd being on race night is my understanding as to why the exemption was requested. The other dates, you'll be revisiting that. Okay. Are there any questions from council? Monica?
Hi, thank you through you, Chair, to the CAO. It's my understanding that the proximity of neighbors that are close by were not necessarily notified? Or
So there is a group of neighbors that actually keep quite in close contact that has one spokesperson that kind of works with the township. It's worked very closely with our building department, bylaw department, and the owner. And so they keep in contact. My understanding is they were given a schedule, and that it shouldn't be an issue, but that's why in the motion we have that they are specifically notified of any exemptions so that they're aware what dates fireworks would be happening.
So just with that in mind, to that point, just wanted to know, do you think it would be beneficial to have a proof of notification of some form that so that covers them, covers us, covers everybody involved?
Certainly, we actually work very closely with that spokesperson so that the township doesn't mind even sending an email just so that they're aware of those dates.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Martin?
And you did say, Dina, that it is the consumer fireworks. So
Correct.
they're gonna be in the middle of the oval track, and it's just the grandstand people that will probably see them. They're not
Correct.
shooting 500 feet in the air.
Yes, that's correct.
So I happen to know that at least one of the individuals follows the staff report, the agenda, and is aware of it. So that's great. If you could just formalize that, I think that would go a long way. And I noticed in your staff report that they are and have been in full compliance with the fire department. They've had their annual inspections, and if they haven't had it this year, they are about to have it. Is that correct? Or
That's correct.
okay, super. All right, if there is no other questions from council at this time, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The planning department, I'd like to welcome Bill White in person, all the way from Texas, and Victoria Mance in person. Not from Texas. Planning Department PL 2024-035 zoning bylaw amendment C4-24 for Paul Shirk, that we receive the staff report for information and that council approve a bylaw to rezone 112017 Gray Road 9, Lot 13, Concession 9 to permit a minimum lot area of 18.5 hectares as an exception to the agricultural 1 zone. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Martin and Jim. Bill.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor DeBreen. It is a pleasure to be here with the council in person. And we'll try and keep it brief. It's been fun to be back in council chambers. It's been several years for myself. So,
Can you just move the microphone closer to you,
add
please?
that
Thank you.
the property is actually at the intersection of Southgate Road 12 and Gray Road 14. So not to start off my first report in person with a error, but that should read Gray Road 14, so my mistake. This parcel was conditionally severed in late April. It's file B-124. One of the provisions in the consent is that the lot area be addressed, which does not meet the minimum requirements in the agricultural -1 zone. The property does meet the minimum frontage requirements, both properties, but they both do not meet the minimum lot area requirement. As you may recall at Committee of Adjustment, when this was discussed, there is an official plan provision that talks about farm cluster parcels being 20 hectares in size. This one is slightly under that as far as the severed lot goes. So we're recommending that the bylaw be adopted to address the issue of lot area for the proposed 2 severed lots.
That it?
Hmm?
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any questions from council? I'll call the question. Oh, sorry,
Sorry,
Martin.
Bill, page 2 of 3 of the report, staff review. Can you, sometimes I can't get my head around ag and rural.
Mhm.
And I think that's a problem for quite a few of us. Well, I shouldn't say that. It is for me at times. Policies in section 5424 states new farm lots should be approximately 20 hectares in size or larger. And then although the minimum recommended lot area created in a rural area is just 2 acres. So if this, would it still be considered a farm being under 20 hectares
If I may, through
or a hobby farm?
if I may,
where they
through the
don't need-
chair, yeah, that is a little confusing. I guess the best way for myself to remember is when it says an agricultural designation, I think of prime agriculture. Even though it doesn't really say that in the township's official plan. So this one is in rural primarily, so the new lot that's being severed is in rural. And that allows creation of a lot as small as 2 acres. So this is somewhere between a 20 hectare farm parcel and a 8.8 hectare lot that is allowed in a rural zone. So is it a farm lot? I guess technically under the official plan, probably not, but it certainly is large enough to be farmed. Whether it's viable or not, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, that leads to a point that might not be applicable for this file because I can't right now see any problem with it. You know, they are growing their families and they need it. But if it is a small hobby farm lot, you know, the next case thing is if it's not really the size of a farm, and you just said, is it equitable to use it as a farm? The on-farm shop it will be coming there. So it's so small, which one feeds which? And that's something for another debate. So just the idea, thank you for explaining, it's still kind of mud. You know, I'm a dirt farmer in that sense, I guess, so.
Yeah.
First
But
one of
you've
the day.
explained it fairly decently, and I'm getting my head around that whole aspect of it, so. Thank you,
Did turn your microphone on?
and I'll turn my mic.
Thank you. Jim.
Just kind of a comment on what Martin was saying. The problem is a lot of us have a idea of what a farm used to be. But nowadays, we also have a lot of poultry, pork producers that your feed is being trucked in. You can have a couple on that, I imagine a couple of poultry barns with, 30,000 birds in the barn, each barn. I'm not sure how many barns you could put on that size, but it is a viable, agriculture thing, so.
That's a
Thank you.
good, that's a good point.
All right. Any other, Joan?
Through the chair, but I am always a little confused when you say it does not meet the minimum requirement, but it is still okay. What is okay and what is not okay about the minimum requirements?
If I may, through the chair, It complies with the intent of the policy in the official plan. But the specific zoning rules, which are what the landowners have to meet, it doesn't meet those requirements. So it's a difference between what's in policy and what's in the zoning bylaw rules and regulations.
Thank you.
So one would have to ask is why don't we have things that actually match to make it easier for making these decisions?
I mean, that's a very valid question. It would go to the need to update, I think, the zoning bylaw. And your official plan is a lot newer than your zoning,
Mhm.
so when and if council chooses to undertake that, those would be the things I think you would want to see consistent. And I know it's been from afar, but we've talked about a few of the other ones that are a little inconsistent as far as additional residential units. And we also talked last meeting about the number of changes that are coming, so I would say the CAO, I see her nodding her head, that probably it's not long for your zoning bylaw to need an update.
No, and I can say that I believe that was tossed around in the last term of council, but priorities were such that we had to carry on with what we had, and hopefully we'll see that in the future. Anybody else have a question? I can't see Monica. There she is. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? I'll ask again. I'm sorry. I now appreciate why the mayor doesn't see everyone. That is carried. Thank you. A bylaw for the same file, be it resolved that bylaw number 2024049 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 19-002 2002 entitled the Township of Southgate zoning bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and entered into the bylaw book. I need a mover and a seconder. Martin and Jason, Jim. That was worse than she. That's personal privilege. There you go. Okay, we'll get through this agenda. I'm going to get them all out in one meeting and I have to do it again. All right. No further, are there any questions or comments with regard to the bylaw? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. PL 2024-036 zoning bylaw amendment C3 24 Harvir Ka, is that how you pronounce it? Dina? No? Okay. And I will apologize to the gentleman if I've mispronounced that. 221 Doyle Street. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report PL 2024-036 for information, and that council consider a zoning bylaw amendment on the lands known as 221 Doyle Street to permit 8 rental residential units on site and holding zone provisions. Mover and seconder? Martin? Jim? Bill?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dupree. There's an old adage, the longer the planning report, sometimes the more challenging it is for a planner to come to a recommendation. This was a very interesting proposal to consider, and certainly appreciate the information that came in through the planning consultant and that council saw at its public planning meeting. This parcel is basically 3 parcels that sit between Doyle Street and Artemisia Street, just above or west of Gray Street. On either side of it are 2 fairly good size, what appear to be 1-family dwellings. Part of this property a while back was rezoned, the 2 small lots, to allow for semi-detached dwellings to be built on it. So that's results in the R3 290 or 390 zoning that's on that property. You know well where the property is located. There's a 70+ lot subdivision to the west, and then to the east would be downtown Dundalk and the Memorial Park. They propose to take down the one-family dwelling that's on the property, put the 3 lots into one, and build 4 rental townhouses facing Artemisia Street and 4 facing Doyle Street. And these would be joined by a common party wall at the back. So you would have 8 rental units in total. Each of these rental units would have an attached garage. And then on the property that the private property part of the lands, there would be a 7.5 meter, 25-foot setback, and they would have a parking spot behind the garage, or what we call in tandem parking. This neighborhood is kind of a traditional small town village type neighborhood with mainly single family homes, detached homes, and fairly large lots. And then of course you have the developing subdivision to the west, which brings a different standard of lot than what communities like Dundalk had traditionally developed at. In terms of water and sewer, there is water main, sanitary sewer on both streets, and storm sewer. And there was a functional servicing report done by the applicants, and that was reviewed by Public Works Manager and also the Triton staff. There are some things in that report that will need to be addressed, and that can be addressed through a future agreement pertaining to the connection of the water and sanitary and storm sewer, should council choose to approve this amendment. Just a reminder of the comments that were at public planning back in the 24th. The county was supportive of this project. They talked about a couple of issues, such as some open space being nearby and using low impact stormwater management on the site. And then Public Works did note there's certain connection requirements they'll see need to see as far as when the street has to be, if it has to be dug up and excavated. Neither the Conservation Authority or Enbridge Gas had any concerns. As far as provincial policy, county official plan policy, township policy, everything now and as far as recommendations is about intensification. There are a couple of numerical targets in official plans that talk about 10% of new housing coming from infilling. This is definitely infilling. There's a 30% of new dwellings to come from to be considered affordable and not to exceed 30% of gross household income. Those are, I guess, aspirational targets, but they're pretty hard to measure, especially when councils and staff have very little control over what things may cost as far as rent and so forth. But it is rental housing, and at the end of all the analysis, for me, that so long as this is rental housing, it's the kind of thing I think we can recommend that council pursue. I should note that in terms of the density, that they call it a gross density, or if you're looking at the density of this housing and just doing a calculation on it, it would be at the quite close to high density housing in terms of what criteria are in our official plan. It's not medium density. So this sits at 66 units per hectare. High density is 75 and medium is 50. So you're getting up there in terms of the number of units, but when you see a couple of options further on, you actually could probably get more units on this site if you were to apply some of the new provisions the province is recommending for municipalities right now. The issues as far as the zoning of the site and the comparisons in the planning report to the R3 zone, I mean, they're helpful to kind of give you a degree of change as far as our normal standards in Southgate. One key one to point out here is that this lot coverage is higher than, at 44%, is higher than anything you allow in any zone right now. The minister's zoning orders allow 40%. Lot coverage here is proposed at 44%. Just looking at the number of bylaws I've seen around Ontario, a lot of them for residential areas tend to be around 40%. So it's a fairly good sized building on a property that's not all that huge for 8 units. In terms of amenity space, we talk a little bit about the sort of lack of functional amenity space. You've got side yards and front yards. But there's no real place where if I rented one of those units, I could sit and enjoy outdoors. The way their design is right now. They do have some porches, which is helpful as far as that kind of space, but not traditionally offering a lot of amenity space outdoors. Couple of ideas came out of this report in terms of analysis of moving the buildings closer to the streets and trying to get some kind of corridor in behind the buildings for outdoor amenity space. So we put some ideas forward for council to consider. That kind of worked pretty well on Gold Street, if you remember that proposal for the two, I think it was two semis. But in that case, we could achieve 8 meters, roughly 30 feet between the two buildings. Here, I don't think you could get it much bigger than 4 meters, which is what, 13, 14 feet in that range between the buildings without significantly changing the depth of those units. And they've taken some time to design their units, and they provided that information in their zoning package. So that was just an option to think about. We actually chose to write that option in the zoning bylaw as an alternative. If in the course of discussions with the developers, they felt like they wanted to have amenity space, and if council saw fit to approve the zoning as written for these rental units, then they could choose to do that. And I think it could be an improvement to the overall situation. But keep in mind, they're fairly high buildings at 2.5, 3 stories. So you can kind of imagine the way that corridor may function. I think if it were kept clean and people had nice patios outdoors where they could put a barbecue and so forth, that it could be a useful outdoor amenity space. But it really goes to what the applicants want to provide to their tenants and what, council sees as far as the vision for that site. We've talked a bit in past applications about the official plan and its concern about dwarfing of buildings and shadowing and views and so forth. This building, it is fairly high, but it's not much higher than what a single family home could be in the same zone. So you could see a semi built like that because they haven't taken the definition of story to the full extent that they could. And that's quite a weird kind of technical argument that I'm making, but I guess I would say this. We're recommending that it be regulated based on the height of the building in meters, not the number of stories, because a story in our zoning bylaw as written could be as high as, I believe, 4.3 meters, which that's pretty high. So if every story was 4.3 meters, you'd have a pretty high building. So we're taking the elevations that they put on their drawing, and in the zoning, we've recommended the height, which will keep it down a little bit lower than what a full story height might have been. I mentioned that there were some options we talked about. I watched your discussion last week on the draft plan approval for the subdivision Glen Elk Phase 3 and talked about the lot sizes that are in there, 10 meters for a single and 8 meters for a semi. So if you were to apply those standards here, you could see 4 semis on, say, fronting on one of the streets. And then under the additional residential unit provisions, each of those 4 units could have 2 more. So you'd look at 12 units on that site. Or if they went to 5 street townhouses at 6 meters, which is what was in that Glen Elk Phase 3, each of those townhomes at the back could have 2 additional units. You'd be at 15. So considering the fact that it's rental housing, and if their applicants are able to embrace the idea of trying to screen the abutting homes with some fencing or keeping some of the existing trees and to comply with the servicing requirements of Public Works, we believe this is consistent with the provincial planning policy. It's compliant with the township and the county official plan, and we're recommending that council consider adopting the zoning amendment, and it will define the two types of rental townhouses, one that would be back to back and one that would have amenity space in behind. So that's our recommendation.
Thank you. I note that we have someone on the call. Hello? If there is if there are any questions for the developer, I'm sorry, is this the owner or the developer?
Through you, Ms. Chair, Madam Chair, I am representing the developer.
Thank you. If there are any questions, then we would have to waive procedure to allow the gentleman to speak.
Yeah, that's correct.
So we'll cross that bridge if there are questions. Thank you. Any questions from council? Monica, then Martin.
Thank you, just through you, Chair, and hi, Bill. And welcome from Texas. That's amazing. So just with regards to emphasis on livability and community integration, while I recognize the need to have more housing, I guess I'm just taking a look at the livability piece of it, that the units and the integration of the development with the existing neighborhood is a priority, that we have adequate amenity space and privacy for residents should there be key considerations for that. And with that being said, just to take it on for the same kind of answer with regards to parking and traffic, I do understand that each unit having an attached garage and tandem parking, how will the parking be managed to ensure it does not overflow into surrounding streets? So I do understand about putting things in, but what I've learned about my scheduling is if I use all the white space and all the time I have, it will start to not give parameters for things that could happen. And that's kind of, in the physical sense, wondering what would happen in that way with parking and livability.
If I may.
Yes.
As far as livability and rental units, these are going to be nice and large. And with the attached inside parking, that to me is something that if I were a renter, I would definitely be interested in. But you can see, depending on who has them, you can easily see garages becoming full of something else other than cars and spill out. If the way this is written, actually, if that were to occur, there technically could be a zoning amendment, a zoning violation, if the attached garage is not available for a car, because it's written in there that there has to be that's part of the required parking is one space. So if that were to be eliminated and they're parking in tandem and their second car is on the street all the time, or their third car or whatever, then Bev or someone from his staff could certainly investigate that. So we tried to address that by writing that into the bylaw, that the inside or the attached parking space be available. So that's a required space. As far as the outdoor amenity, it's a balance. I personally like to have that outdoor space. I feel it makes them more livable for people, even if it's just a small space. I know for my wife and I, we don't need the open space we used to need, and it's not far for parks and so forth here. But I think the size of the units, the indoor parking, I think they're going to be attractive rental units, and I take a lot of comfort out of that they're rental. But if the developer feels in the course of discussion that maybe they want to adjust the unit size a little bit and maybe provide some outdoor space, then this zoning is written to allow them to take up that option if they want.
Just a follow-up. With regards to that, through you, Chair, to, I guess it'd be the clerk or yourself, if we wanted to have that amendment or in that bylaw, is that something that would come at that time, or is that something that we could, look to having in the peripheral already?
If I may, it's written in there now, so, and I kind of glossed over it as I got to the end. So we're defining two types of rental townhouses, back to back, which is the common wall that they would share, or rental townhouses with amenity space. So those would both be allowed on the property. If they chose to build rental townhouses with amenity space, then they can change their front yard from 7.5 meters to 5.75 meters, which is still enough to park a car. And that front space would be transferred to the back. So there would be roughly 4 meters between the two buildings then. So they have that option. It's written in that zoning bylaw amendment as it stands. And if council chooses to go ahead with that, then they can choose to do that later, or they can build the 8 back to back, whichever one they choose. If council didn't like one option or the other, they could direct that we pull one of those options out, and that probably we would have to come back to you at another meeting. Okay.
Martin.
Oh, thank you. Bill, you mentioned this area is 40% over. I know you said that was provincial guidelines. 4% is not worth really having a problem with, though, is it? It's not going to be a penalty to them, or?
If I may, through the chair, you're probably not going to notice 4%.
Well, that's what I
difference.
mean. So
When you look at it, if they were to make their units smaller and be at 40% and keep them back to back, it probably pretty much look the way it looks.
and you mentioned compatibility. There's no shadowing. I noticed the roof line, top of roof is 36.1, so that's no higher. That's within our bylaws, I would assume then. Okay. And then there was one because of the height, and the other one's sun availability would be limited to sunrise, sunset, and partial sun, making the vegetation sod hard to maintain. Is this the one they said they put rain gardens in? Could that be part of when it comes to that point, that they actually do that? I know that's a silly little thing, but that will add to the amenity side of the building.
If I may, through Chair DeBreen, so the rain garden part, I'm not 100% sure on how that would work. And I know the engineers, without going into great detail, would like to see more information on that. And we don't have site plan control on this kind of building anymore because it's under 10 units. So I can't guarantee you that A, they will have rain gardens, or B, that the engineers would approve them even if they did want them. But to the idea of sun exposure, this corridor, if they choose to put it in, kind of has an east-west orientation mainly. So, you know, the sun will only go in there at certain time periods. So I'm guessing it would not be grass. Yeah.
Thank you.
Joan.
Thank you through the chair. Parking spaces, is it two? I get lost along the way somewhere. So it's a garage and then on the driveway. So it's 2 parking spaces. Okay,
Sorry.
thank you.
Could you just repeat that? I didn't quite hear it all. Thank you.
I was asking about the parking spaces, if there's a garage and then there's a driveway, because he said something about the parking spot. I thought it was only one. My concern was because they're renters, sometimes they do have more than 1 cars and also need outdoor amenities. I'm sure some of the renters will have small kids and they would want to go outside, especially in the summertime. Thank you.
Thank you for repeating that. Any other questions? So I did have just some clarification. The 4 point whatever meters is 15 feet, maybe, not an awful lot. I was in London yesterday and happened to see some townhomes with porches, which reminded me that it would be no different than if we had an apartment building and people had either, if you were on the main floor, you'd have a little, 4x8 patio, or you were in an apartment building. So I'm kind of leaning to the back-to-back, but I was intrigued by the option on 6 units as opposed to 8. Could you speak to that, Bill, please?
I guess the 6 units would bring it closer to the theoretical medium density calculation that I referred to in the official plan. But that's a significant reduction in density for the site in n number of units. So I'm not sure if that were to happen, then a lot more could be done with outdoor space, but it's fewer units, so. You know, that the developer would have to balance that as far as the size of the units, the market for the units, cost of the servicing, all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
when I looked at it and thought about it, I felt that if it were rental, that I was much more comfortable with it. And only if it were rental. And to your point about the porches, I agree with that. Porches that they're proposing are fairly small, like 4 by 4 feet. So this one, the back 4-meter area would be a fairly good size porch on ground for everyone that would be there. So, yeah.
Hmm.
So
Then
e-
who maintains it?
So that
The-
would be.
The
up to
landlord
the-
would have
that's
to
correct.
maintain it and I see.
Yep.
Hmm.
Now they could, in their lease, just like if I rent a place, I maintain my porch, I could maintain my back 4 by 4 meter
Hmm.
outdoor patio too. So I'd have to take the garbage up and so forth.
I see. All right. All right, well, seeing no other questions, what we have is to consider approval of the bylaw. And currently, the recommendation for this staff report is to be it resolved, zoning amendment on the lands known as 221 Doyle Street to permit 8 rental residential units on site and holding zone provisions. All in favor? Sorry, did you have a question?
No.
Okay,
Sorry, isn't it 2 sets? He said either back to back or isn't it 2 set of stuff that we're talking about? Yeah.
there's 8, so it would be 4 back to back for a total of 8 units.
Or-
Whether they are back to back or have a 4 point something meter common space.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is what is before us at this moment. And I will call the question, all in favor? That is carried. We'll go to the bylaw. Be it resolved that the bylaw 2024-050 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 19-2002 entitled the Township of Southgate zoning bylaw be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation and entered into the bylaw book. And that is for zoning bylaw for the zoning bylaw amendment C3-24. Any further comments or questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay,
You didn't get a mover and seconder.
did I not? I did not. I'm just getting it all out of the way. I need a mover and seconder. Jim and Martin. All in favor? That is carried, still carried. All right, maybe we need a quick stretch break. If you don't mind. I know we've kept you here all day, almost. Okay, 5-minute recess. Thank you. Yeah, Brian, yeah, just call me Brian. 1 minute warning. Welcome back. We're now on 8.5.5 PL 2024-038 zoning bylaw amendment C 19-23 and OPA 2-23 township cemetery land swap, that we receive it for information, that council consider approval of the bylaw, adopting the official plan amendment 4 to the Township of Southgate official plan, and that council consider approval of site-specific zoning bylaw 2024-053. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Joan and Jason? Bill? Our planner,
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
or Victoria.
Victoria is coming, not too long, so.
Okay, good.
You're gonna have her, your next meeting, I think. So this property is located on Gray Road 9. It's part of the minister's zoning order area. Most of you are probably even more familiar with it than I am. There's the Maple Grove Cemetery is part of the involved lands. And there's a back part of the parcel that is to be added to the development area. And then in return, the township receives another parcel that will be used for multiple institutional type township uses, public works garage, fire hall, rec facilities, and others things yet to be confirmed. There was a planning justification report done by a private firm back in December, and then there is a link into that report and a map from that report that shows the land trade that's proposed at this point. It's parcel 1 sits at the back of the cemetery. It becomes part of the neighborhood area or the Ida Street development area or whatever name you want to call it. And then parcel 2, which actually is, as I understand it, getting a little larger in size as far as what the township would be receiving, would become part of the community facilities area that would be used for some of the things that the township will need as it continues to grow. This application to put the land behind the cemetery into the neighborhood area designation also required a county official plan amendment, and that I believe has been adopted, and if it's not into full force yet, it will be shortly. It also requires an amendment to the township official plan and to the zoning bylaw, and we're recommending all 3 of those amendments. There is some information in the report about Public Works comments, Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation requesting a condition on the archaeological investigation that they would require that at the subdivision stage. And then one of the local funeral homes did ask you to think about the benefit of the impact on the cemetery of losing the back part of the land. The cemetery itself obviously is in the front, and we did do a preliminary assessment of the space available. I know other people had looked at this in the past, and even at reasonably low growth rates, reasonably high growth rates, you're looking at 60 years minimum, and probably a lot more than that That's assuming that interments grow like with the population that you expect to have in the next 20 to 30 years. And of course, there's always new options for interring. So that can preserve space too. So I certainly feel like, and done some work on cemeteries before in other communities, and I don't believe that this is an undignified thing to do. I think allowing people to live around a cemetery and even welcoming them in over time is something important. And I certainly recommend that this land be included in the neighborhood area. It makes for more efficient layout of the future subdivision, all of which you'll see as development starts to come forward. So we're all recommending both the amendment to the official plan and the zoning bylaw to allow for the land to be developed in that fashion and for the land exchange to occur.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Monica?
Just for a point of clarification, is this the similar land swap that we were discussing? Okay. So just with that in mind, just wanted to make sure. What is the status of the historical and archaeological considerations with the Shawinigan Ojibwe Nation? And just to tag on to that, have we had a good amount of public consultation for those that, I just heard comments about this, as we know. I have to ask the question, is that something that could be open a little bit wider? Because I feel like it's still floating around.
If I may, then the archaeological, I believe, will be addressed through the draft plan subdivision stage. So as of right now, and that could change, that draft plan procedure requires a public meeting, so there will be more input into that. And I'm talking about when the whole subdivision develops. So not just this back piece. So you did have a public meeting jointly with the county on this back piece, and there was a couple people did speak at that, and that's when the funeral home wrote, I believe. So there will be more opportunity for public discussion on the whole development, but as far as this part of it, that was at public planning a while back. And the archaeological, I think, is normally dealt with through the draft plan approval stage. So last meeting when we did Glen Elk Phase 3, there was a couple of archaeological conditions in there. And at that time, the band is given the studies, and they sometimes even participate in the walkthroughs on the property, and then they sign off too. So we'll catch that at a later stage. That's what's being recommended here.
Any further questions? Seeing no hands?
I have one more.
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to give an opening for others. This may have been already answered. I just wanted to ask with regards to the environmental considerations. If we're taking a look at the proximity to the wellhead protection area D, just wanted to make sure that there are measures in place that would not negatively essentially impact our local water supply and environment, as we just had a big presentation about that earlier today.
I mean, public works manager might be able to answer a little bit more on the wellhead protection area, but we did do an analysis of the former landfill that's actually not all that far away, where the I guess it's a recycling center now, or a transfer station. It was a landfill, and they did look at that, so they aren't finding any evidence of issues with that. But as far as the wellhead protection area, I don't know if I have anything more to add to that, other than I think it's in sort of the outer edges of that. Is that fair to say?
I'll offer it up to our Public Works Manager, Jim Ellis.
Yeah, so there's very little that touches in the Wapiti. It's right at the corner of Ida and Main. It's actually not the cemetery lands. They're not in a wellhead protection area. So it's the development at the corner of Main and Ida infringes on that Wapiti, which is basically about Dean apples, and those kind of chemicals would be prohibited and restricted in those areas. No concerns with source water protection in this area, or very minimal.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. The bylaw that goes with it for the official plan amendment for Township Cemetery lands. Got a mover and seconder? Joan, Martin? Any further comments? None from staff? No questions from council? Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. We have the 8.5.7 bylaw 2024-053 for the zoning bylaw amendment C19-23. Again, this is Township of Cemetery lands. Going to move her and seconder, please. Joan, Martin. Any further discussion, comments? Bill, did you have a?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll be very brief on this one. We get to talk about all the different A through D WAPAs in this, oh, sorry,
Just the bylaw.
all the bio.
Oh,
I have not-
yeah, we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. All right, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Now, 8.5.8 PL 2024-037 zoning bylaw amendment C5-24 source water protection that we received the staff report and on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, including the definition of dense non-aqueous phase liquid as recommended by the Public Works Manager to implement source water protection and wellhead protection areas in Official Plan Amendment 21, and that the correspondence from Melancton Township be received and that council determine no further notice of the said bylaw be required pursuant to Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Could I get a mover and seconder for this, please? Jim and Joan? Bill?
Well, I won't use the same joke again. So this is following through with the mandated source water protection requirements of the province. Council did an official plan amendment number 21 some time ago. There was a requirement that the zoning bylaw be amended appropriately. We talked about it back in February with a draft amendment, and that was subject to a public planning committee meeting. After that, I don't know whether you want me to go into the long details about source water protection planning and how it started nearly 10 years ago and what happened, but what has resulted is that there are these 4 areas around the wellhead in all Ontario municipalities that are identified, and certain activities are restricted in those areas by the source water protection plans. And this source water protection plan here, I think, was done jointly with 2 or 3 other conservation authorities. So it covers quite a broad area. And we've heard your Public Works Manager speak quite clearly and eloquently about what happens in each of these circular areas around the wellhead. The only difference between what you saw before in February and what is added in this draft amendment is the definition of a dense non-aqueous phase liquid. DNAPLs, which are things used in paints and varnishes. And what the reason it's mentioned is that if these get into your water system, obviously it can be a problem. The circles around the wellhead talk about travel time and soil absorption and water table and all that stuff. So adding that definition of DNAPLs into the zoning amendment is appropriate. I don't think it changes the intent of what was circulated back in February. And it's all in the source water protection plan itself anyway. So I don't think you need to give further notice than you've already done for this proposed amendment. So we're certainly recommending it from a planning perspective that you complete the cycle or circle on the Source Water Protection Act requirements.
Thank you. Jim, did you want to add anything?
No, just with the DNAPLs, it's in all the wellhead protection areas. So it's just more education out there to bring to the forefront. If someone's challenged with what they're proposing or whatever, it it makes them do some research, and if those are things that they're gonna have in that area, that they won't be permitted or restricted or something along that line. So it just gives a little bit more education out there for the public to understand.
Thank you. Martin?
Thank you. Jim, with it going over into Melanchthon, the pale yellow D, it basically is up to 25 years of how the water drains to the well head. Really bad pun. Are these things fluid? Because there might be a lot of development over in 25 years on the other side with that pavement and more houses with possible oil, paint. Looking down the road, could that be changed with more development coming in?
Jim?
Again, this is looked after. If there was anything that came across the planning table and in Dufferin, they would have to look at that. We also comment maybe on it, but they have a risk management official that looks after their side of the line. As we do touch on, Mount Forest has Wapiti touching just in over at Gray Road 109 and Highway 6 area. So we're in a similar situation there, but not for the residential, not really. It's not restrictive. It's for, you can have some smaller quantities. It's when you get above those thresholds and you're going to store or manufacture or do something with big time with these nasty Dean apples that you would be prohibited. And it's still applicable across there currently right now.
Any other, Monica?
Yes, thank you. Just for you, intermunicipal collaboration and cohesiveness is key. And just to the point that was last brought up, could you just touch on a bit the process in which the updates for the neighboring municipality, Melanchthon, will, and that will be ensured to understand what's going on over there as the time goes by and how that communication is happening intermunicipality wise?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so that's been ongoing. This has been going on for years. This is a formality. We should have had this housekeeping done with the zoning bylaw amendment done a long time ago. It's just kept getting put to the back burner. So this is nothing really new. It's just tidying up those loose ends that were never accomplished. So they're well aware of what's going on over there. As far as I know, Nottawasaga NVCA, they are the RMO for Dufferin and Melanchthon in that section. So yeah, if there was something that came along and those significant threats were identified, there would be again measures put in place to deal with it or restrict it, prohibit it, or whatever. And yeah, we'd be involved if we heard about something happening over there.
Thank you. So just to clarify for my own purposes as well, you are referring to larger quantities, perhaps more commercial or industrial type activities, as opposed to perhaps a home that might have washed their paintbrush. How do residents handle, or dispose of paintbrushes and turpentine, paint thinner type activities? People paint. Jim?
So we're fortunate we have the has-been that they can bring the materials that are not used up and to be disposed of in a proper manner. So we're fortunate other municipalities, as we were originally, they have a hazardous day once or twice a year. So it's always available to our residents at this point in time. But everyone's going to have something that has a Dean apple in their household right now, whether it be a can of brake fluid or a brake cleaner or whatever. There's going to be small quantities everywhere. As it states in most planning comments, when it says for risk management about Dean apples are effective in WAPA, all the WAPAs, but generally the comment is like a WAPA C or D, or that they're restricted and that public outreach and education is the tool for getting the message across that, you know, these don't belong being poured on the ground sort of thing, right? So.
And I think our staff do a good job in that education piece. And I think the calendar that we send out to all of our residents is very helpful. So thank you. All right. So if there's no further questions, I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. And the bylaw that goes along with that, bylaw 2024-051, zoning bylaw C524, township source water protection. Jim and Jason, any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. We have no bylaws and motions. We have no notices of motion. Consent items. Be it resolved that council approve the items on the regular business consent agenda, save and accept any items. Are there any items that we're wanting to be pulled? Pulled being, you can still discuss them. Pulling them would be to actually change a direction. So there any items to be pulled? No? Okay. So I need a mover and a seconder to receive these for. Monica, are you moving it? Jim? Is there any further discussion? Any discussion on any of the reports? I'll call the question. Sorry. Yes, Martin.
I do have one.
Microphone.
Yep, sorry.
Thank you. See
Um,
you, Bill.
The ultrasound Quattro Duo, is that the brochure I gave you a year ago where it's like an electric buoy you put into the lagoon and then all the electromagnetic sends out and breaks down all the solids? And it says you're going to use it for 2 months. If it works well, would you consider using it all the time if it works that well? Considering the problems you've had with solids?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, so this was in our challenges recently. Aqua had pointed us toward this. I can't recall. It sounds similar to what you were talking about, Martin, very similar. So I believe so, but I don't recall exactly. So we installed it. It's in there right now on the trial basis. That lagoon right now is crystal clear. You can see the bottom. You can basically see no growth happening whatsoever right now. We still have some challenges right now with unionized ammonia still and pH creeping high again still, but the technology, whether we keep it or not, that'll have to go through the process with the ministry if it was to be longer term to adopt it into our ECA, but we will look. We've got some lab results out. We haven't seen any results yet, so time will tell a little bit, but a combination of things right now. We can't tell exactly what's working and what's not for sure, but if we do, the purchase price for this unit is about $9,000 to $10,000. So it uses minimal hydro, but you can also get in a solar version as well. So we'll explore that when we go a little deeper and see if the test results give us any information either. But we've dosed alum in that cell 3 and 4 twice now this spring, and this ultrasound is in cell 4. And as I say, you can see if there is a shipwreck down there, you would see it right now just by looking from the top. So
No fish. No, you said 9 or 10,000 about a year and a half ago. It was like 8, so it must be the same. So thank you.
So one further question to that, it prompted me in doing a little bit more research about this ultrasound technology. Would this be something that with Wilder Lake having that algae issue over the last few years and the residents doing water testing and things, would this be something that could be applied into a small lake like that? It did say on the website, ponds, lakes, safe for aquatic life. Jim?
I guess that's a possibility. Is that a municipal responsibility? I'm not sure. But yeah, it could provide benefit for sure. It doesn't seem to be changing the wildfowl habitat there. There's still plenty of activity. It's not any observations of change that way hasn't occurred. But I in the short answer would be, yes, it could be something that could be implemented, I guess.
I
It
did
does
forward,
have a fairly big range, but for Wilders Lake, it might require more than one unit.
I did forward on to the Conservation Authority because I know they were involved in the education piece of the algae concerns. So thank you for that. I'll, if there's no further questions about this section, I'll call the question. All those in favor of receiving it for information? That is carried. I need a mover and seconder for correspondence. Are there any items that are required to be pulled? It's fairly substantial. There's 19, looks like 7. Sorry. Monica, you wanted to pull an item?
Yes, 11.2.1.
Okay. Any other items to be pulled? And I'm asking, are you planning on moving a different resolution than to receive it for information?
I just want to read it as a testimony from a smart
Oh.
committee.
Okay, well, we can do that without pulling it.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I need a mover and seconder to receive the correspondence section. Martin and Joan. Okay, Monica.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm just pulling it up here. One moment. So as part of the SMART committee, we ever so often, get these amazing testimonials that came in. And I just wanted to read it, and it will be self-explanatory. It's not that long. So this is dated Tuesday, April 2nd from Huron Shores Hospice. Dear Angela and Shawgeen Mobility, I would like to thank you for the work you do in supporting the community with transport and what that means in so many supportive ways. Then just moving from point A to point B, we booked your services a few weeks ago to transport a guest to do a trip to see the water. We had to cancel as the weather was really bad and wanted to ensure he had a beautiful experience in what would be his last transitional days. Last Tuesday, March 26th, we were able, with the support of yourself, after many phone calls from me and George's supportive pickup, to take B to his trip to Port Elgin, Main Beach. We stayed for 1 hour and he was able to sit while we all watched as he got to experience seeing the water and what would be his last visit to the water. I'm writing to say thank you from all of us at Huron Shores Hospice in Tiverton for bringing this ask to fruition. You never know the small impact you can make in someone's life. You made a difference. B died peacefully with us in hospice on Sunday, March 31st, 2024. We appreciate you and your organization. Warm regards, volunteer coordinator, Huron Shores Hospice in Tiverton. So I just wanted to thank you for listening to that. This letter truly reflects the profound impact that services like those provided by Shawgeen Mobility can have on individuals and their families during critical times. It is a reminder of the importance of supporting such vital community services. And I wanted to, our whole committee was very moved by this story. And as soon as a testimonial became available to our agenda, I wanted to ensure that we read it as a SMART committee member. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Monica. And yes, the Saugeen Mobility Accessible Regional Transit does do great work in our community and through all of the member municipalities. So we are grateful to them for this. And are there any other comments for any of the other items? I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We go on to 11.3, resolutions of other municipalities. Are there any items that anyone wishes to pull for further direction? Seeing none, I need a mover and seconder to receive the items. Monica, Joan, are there any comments or discussion for any of the items? I'll call the Martin.
I've been wondering about, there's two, one from Orangeville and one from
Which
Cobourg.
numbers?
11.3. So.
0.15?
Yeah, the Orangeville one, the Cobig's one, the same. Lindsay, to have a heritage committee, we need to be over a certain population, and their amendment is to go 5 years, extending it for any heritage buildings that we might have. Would
Yeah,
that be
it's-
something to be interested in?
I
Because in
believe
5
it-
years, we might be over 10,000.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you have to have a committee if you're over 10,000. Don't you? No?
Anyway, we can clear.
Yeah, we'll clarify. I thought you had, but Dina, if you have comments, go ahead, please. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dina.
It's okay. We can clarify that, the act requirements, at a later date. I don't believe it's a required committee over a certain, like in Wasaga, we didn't have one. We had a historical committee, but we didn't have heritage required. I believe it's a may and not a required. But this particular correspondence is about removing some of the things from that act and extending that timeline. Because some places like Orangeville have a long list of identified properties that are not registered. And so they would have to remove that whole list or register them in that time. I think that we don't have a long list regardless. So there's no immediate need for the township to be concerned at this point.
I believe they're actually the request is for an extension on the drop dead date of having filled out those forms. So and it can be quite cumbersome to do all of the research on all of the buildings. So, Joan, you had your hand up?
Thank you through you. No, it's okay. I was just gonna add to the amount of people that you'll have in the township to have the Heritage Board, because I sat on the board in Brampton, but it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other further questions or comments about any of the items under correspondence? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of receiving those? That is carried. Closed session for information, we have none. County report in the interest of time. You can watch the county council agenda and listen to the debate, but we did hear from Grey Roots Museum and Archives. They presented their annual report for 2023, and they were thrilled with the results that they had throughout the year, actually coming back to pre-pandemic levels and a 44% increase over 2022. So yes, Worston Village is a huge hit, and it's very interesting. Lots of events planned this year for Grey Roots Museum. We talked about the changes in the Planning Act, and yeah, basically have a listen and follow along. The members' privilege. Joan? Oh, sorry, I can only look in one direction at a time. So Joan and then
Yes.
Monica. Oh, sure.
Thank you through the chair. Oh, I just wanted to say, I went to the Olstein Optimus Club for the play 9 to 5. And I really had a great laugh. It was such a good play, well put together. Congratulations to all the people there. And we also went to the Dundalk Liquor Theatre. Somebody beside me was in the play, and that was the murder mystery at the Legion, and that was also very, very well done by the Dundalk Liquor Theatre. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica.
Yes, so as we are in May, just wanted to take a moment to recognize Asian Heritage Month. This month is an opportunity for us to honor the rich cultural heritage, history, and contributions of Asian Canadians to our community and country. It's a time to celebrate the diverse cultures, traditions, and achievements of Asian Canadians in various fields, including arts, science, business, and public service. So just wanted to take that time. Yeah, so just thinking about what happened today that I find to be unfortunate, but let us use this month to promote understanding, respect, and appreciation for the diverse cultures that enrich our lives, and to stand against racism and discrimination, ensuring that Southgate remains a welcoming and inclusive community for everyone. And just wanted to mention that May 21st from 6 to 8 p.m., Asian Heritage Month Authors Night will be celebrated. We have a wonderful author coming in named Ton Campbell. He is Vietnamese born and he was part of Baby Lift, Operation Baby Lift, if you look at that up, from the 70s. And he has a compelling story. And I'm very thankful and have full of gratitude that he will be making a stop right here in our Ruth Hargrave Library. So please, if you have time, don't miss the opportunity. He will be here 6 to 8 p.m. And that's a really great way to celebrate Asian Heritage Month, as well as our local library and doing something wonderful for our community.
Thank you, Monica. Yep, there's lots of activities going on for Asian Heritage Month. So thank you for bringing that up. May 21st. Any other members' privilege? No? Okay. I think we need a motion to go past 4 o'clock, just in case. Martin? Jim? Any opposed? I mean, probably all are, but we're going to do it anyway. That all in favor, that is carried. All right, we've got a motion to go past 4. We do need to go into closed session at 3:43 p.m. to address matters relating to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 2392C, subject sale of property update, and that all those required remain in attendance. I need a mover and a seconder, Martin and Jim. Jason, you had a comment?
I'll have to declare pecuniary interest.
Okay. Let it be. Jason Rice has declared a pecuniary interest and will not be participating in the discussion.
And he's
Or-
leaving the meeting.
And he's leaving the meeting. You're not going to wait for us to come out, are you? All right, all in favor? No, we haven't called the vote yet. Thank you. All in favor? That is carried. We are in closed session. I'll meet you in the other room.
Yeah.
Are we? Good. We're back from closed session. I can declare that we only discussed the matter for which we declared to go into closed session, and that Councillor Rice did not attend the closed session. One last or two last motions confirming bylaw. The mover, Monica, Jim. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. One last motion to adjourn. Sorry, I'm getting whiplash. Monica, we'll go with Monica. Seconder, Jim. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you all, and thank you for your patience.